After I married Mark Thompson, the illegitimate son of the wealthiest man in our city, he treated me as if I was the center of his universe. Everyone thought I was lucky to have married for love, but as I was drowning, he just stood by and watched me with a cold expression. "Stop pretending," he said, his voice devoid of any warmth. "I gave you more than 20 years of a comfortable life as Mrs. Thompson. That should be more than enough." He then delivered the final blow. "The only person I feel I owe anything to is your cousin, Jessica. She's the one I truly love. She waited quietly for me for 10 years, just so I wouldn't be put in a difficult spot." He added cruelly, "You'd better actually be drowning this time. It would be the perfect outcome for us." Even our son, who had just started college, chimed in to support him. "Dad, don't worry about her. Aunt Jessica is the one who really cares about us. She's been managing the company so well all these years. You should marry her." I'm sure Mom would have wanted you to be happy. The anger was so intense that I couldn't breathe, and I died from suffocation. I had dedicated over 2 decades of my life to that family, and in the end, they were happy to leave me for dead. When I opened my eyes again, I found myself back on the day Mark came to our house to propose marriage. The look he gave me was filled with open disgust. Before my father had a chance to say anything, Mark stepped forward and spoke directly to him. "Mr. Miller, the person I love is Jessica. Please, allow me to marry her." In that single moment, I understood everything. Mark had been reborn, just like me. My dad was trembling with anger, pointing a shaky finger at Mark, too furious to form words. But Mark's attention was entirely on Jessica, who was standing just behind me. I recognized that look in his eyes. In my previous life, whenever I invited Jessica to our home, Mark would look at her with that same obsessive, almost crazed expression. "Mr. Miller, I made a mistake before," Mark said, his gaze unwavering from Jessica. "Jessica is my true soulmate." He finally turned to look at me, his expression full of disdain. "Sarah is just too boring and dull. I want to build a business empire with Jessica by my side. Besides, Jessica has been living in your house for years anyway. She's practically like a daughter to you." My father's chest heaved with fury. He reached for the phone to call security, but I put my hand on his arm to stop him. "Wait," I said. My father looked at me, completely stunned. Mark froze for a second, then a mocking smile spread across his face. He must have assumed I was going to beg him, just like I had in our last life. He stepped closer to me, offering a condescending alternative. "Sarah, even though we can't get married, I can offer you a job as my personal assistant. You can name your own salary. Anything you want. After all, you were with me for so many years." The room fell completely silent. My father's face turned from red to a deep, livid shade, but I just smiled. I gently moved his hand away from the phone and walked slowly toward Mark. I stopped right in front of the man I had loved for more than 20 years, looked him directly in the eye, and said calmly, "An illegitimate child who had to marry his way to the top." I never had much respect for that. I paused, my smile widening. Now I find I despise it even more. I saw the shock freeze on Mark's face. Then I turned to my father and said, "Dad, I don't want to look at this any longer. I'm going upstairs to change." But I didn't go to my own room. I walked directly to Jessica's. I felt I had to warn her that Mark Thompson was not a good man. The door was slightly ajar, and Jessica had her back to me, speaking in a hushed, excited voice on the phone with her best friend. "I've got him," she said, her tone full of smug satisfaction. "Mark, that idiot, he announced right in front of everyone that he wants to marry me. Sarah is just a pretty face with no brains. What does she know about business or about men? I just copied her style, imitated the way she talks, and took a few of her business plans from her computer. I made a few small changes, and now Mark thinks I'm some kind of business genius, his perfect soulmate. He has no idea that every compliment he gives me is for something that dumb Sarah came up with. Ha, just you wait. Once I marry into the Thompson family, the first thing I'll do is make sure the Miller family's company is handed over to my parents." I froze where I was standing. So that was the truth. My ideas had been stolen, and everything my family had worked for was just a joke to an ungrateful traitor. While I was still processing this, Mark suddenly grabbed my wrist. I hadn't even realized he had followed me upstairs. His face was twisted with anger. "Sarah, I'm warning you. Don't you dare think about hurting Jessica." He was convinced I had come to cause trouble for her. His eyes were full of contempt as he sneered, "Get over your jealousy. Jessica's talent is something you could never hope to understand. In 3 days, at the Genesis Capital Venture Summit, she's going to blow everyone away. You should just accept reality and stop making a fool of yourself." Mark was completely convinced that his second chance at life was all about correcting his past mistakes and finding his true love. He genuinely believed that all his success in our previous life was thanks to Jessica's supposed brilliance. As I looked at his arrogant, foolish face, I felt a surge of anger, but I managed to force a smile that seemed to make him hesitate. "Sure," I said calmly. "I'm looking forward to it. I wanted him to watch as everything he believed in, everything he had pinned his hopes on, came crashing down around him." 3 days later, I walked into the Genesis Capital Venture Summit and immediately became the center of attention. It wasn't because of who I was, but because everyone saw me as the pitiful woman whose fiancé had been stolen by her own cousin. "She actually has the nerve to show up," someone whispered. What thick skin. If that were me, I'd have hidden myself away in shame. Jessica is a once-in-a-generation business prodigy. Mark Thompson isn't an idiot. Of course he chose her. I heard the whispers, some sympathetic, others just eager for drama. I ignored them all, watching coldly as Mark and Jessica enjoyed the flattery from the crowd. Eventually, they noticed me and walked over. Mark spoke first, his voice dripping with condescension. "Sarah, do you see now? This is the world that belongs to me and Jessica. All you can do is watch us from the audience." I smiled. "Mr. Thompson, have you ever heard the expression, 'to damn with faint praise'?" His smile faltered. "Still trying to act tough," he scoffed. His eyes turned cold as he pointed to the hem of Jessica's dress. "Go fix her gown. If you do that, I'll believe you're really here to wish us well. When the summit is over, if I'm in a good mood, maybe I'll let you join the company as a team leader." It was an offer of pure charity. Jessica gently tugged on his arm, a troubled expression on her face. "Mark, don't be like that. Sarah is still my older cousin after all. I don't deserve that kind of treatment." Her words were humble, but she leaned forward slightly, clearly anticipating the moment I would kneel to serve her. Watching their little performance made me feel sick. Just then, the stage lights came on. The vice president of Genesis Capital, acting as the host, walked on stage. "Good evening, everyone," he said. "Tonight, our special guest investor, the mysterious Mr. K, has expressed great interest in Miss Jessica Miller's project, the Codex. Now, please welcome Miss Jessica to the stage for a one-on-one investor pitch." The room erupted in applause. Flashbulbs went off as every camera focused on Jessica. Her smile was perfect. Mark lifted his chin, beaming with pride. He was Jessica's biggest supporter, the one who had gotten her this opportunity. He leaned toward me and whispered, "Now, do you see? Jessica's talent is my greatest asset." Then he threw a document at me. The corner of the paper cut the back of my hand, leaving a stinging red mark. I looked down. It was a statement, supposedly written by me, declaring that I was voluntarily ending our engagement, admitting my inferiority and wishing them happiness. "Don't force my hand," he said, staring at me as if I were an insect he could crush. The host on stage cleared his throat. "In addition," he announced, "Mr. K has one more request." The room fell silent. Mr. K would like Miss Sarah Miller to join the pitch on stage as well. Mark's smile froze. The light in Jessica's eyes faded. The host continued. "We've discovered that the project submitted by Miss Sarah Miller, Solaris, shares an identical core framework with Miss Jessica Miller's project, the Codex." Every head in the room turned to look at me. Mark whipped his head around, his eyes flashing with fury. Jessica was already trembling, all the color drained from her face. In the suffocating silence, I calmly straightened my collar and walked past them without a glance. I stepped onto the stage, and the spotlight immediately found me. Behind me, the giant screen displayed 2 project proposals side by side. The Codex on the left, Solaris on the right. The structure and financial forecasts were identical. Jessica was the first to speak, her eyes filling with tears. Sarah, I know you've never liked me, but why would you steal the project I poured my heart into? With one sentence, she tried to paint me as a jealous fraud. Mark immediately pulled her into his arms and pointed at me, shouting, "She stole it!" I saw her 3 days ago, sneaking into Jessica's room. She must have taken the files then. He glared at me with pure hatred. Sarah, I know you too well. All you've ever been good at is cheap tricks. You don't know the first thing about real business strategy. You're not even qualified to be Jessica's assistant. My father, sitting in the audience, looked like he was about to charge the stage. I subtly raised my hand to stop him. Then I turned to the host and said calmly, "Words don't prove anything. Since Mr. K is watching, why don't we let him ask a live question, a pressure test? Then we'll see who the real creator is." Mark answered for Jessica without hesitation. "Fine. Let's settle this so you'll finally admit defeat." He was certain Jessica would win. The large screen lit up with a video call. Mr. K appeared, wearing a silver mask that only showed his eyes. He presented a complex, forward-thinking question. Jessica turned pale. The question was far beyond anything she had memorized. She tried to answer, but her words were a jumbled mess. In the end, all she could say was, "It's a bold concept, but it needs more time to be validated." Mark quickly tried to smooth things over. He shot me a smug look and said, "Jessica's just nervous. But you, Sarah, you're too scared to even say a word. You've already lost." Then he turned to the screen. "Mr. K, Jessica is a pure, innocent girl. Please don't make things harder for her. I apologize on her behalf. As long as you're still willing to invest, I promise to make Sarah disappear for good." I smiled, stepped forward, and picked up a marker. I began to break down Mr. K's question on the whiteboard, analyzing it from 3 different angles: core logic, technical feasibility, and real-world application. I dissected the problem and proposed 3 concrete solutions. When I finished, I put the marker down and faced the audience. "One more thing," I said, pointing to the 2 identical proposals on the screen behind me. "To fool amateur investors who pretend to know business, like Mr. Thompson, I intentionally planted 3 data traps in my proposal. I then identified each trap, explained its purpose, and revealed when it was designed to cause problems. A real thief," I said clearly, "would never have noticed any of that." The room was dead silent. Mark's face went from red to a humiliated shade of blue. Jessica looked like she was about to collapse. After a long pause, Mr. K spoke. "Mr. Mark Thompson, do you still believe Miss Sarah Miller is the plagiarist?" Mark's face turned ashen. He looked like he had been stripped naked in front of the entire world. No, that's impossible," he muttered, turning to the speechless Jessica in his arms. "Jessica, tell everyone it's not true. It was you. You taught me all of this. Say it." Jessica's lips trembled, but no words came out. Then, Mr. K's voice came through the speakers again. "Miss Jessica Miller, your submission was received 3 days ago at 9:15 a.m. Our system shows that Miss Sarah Miller submitted her project 3 weeks ago at 3:02 p.m. The crowd erupted. Every mocking glance now turned on Mark and Jessica. Mark shoved Jessica away from him as if she were contaminated. She fell to the ground with a scream. He didn't even look at her. He stormed over to me, his eyes bloodshot, and grabbed my shoulders. "You planned this," he hissed. "You planned it all. You wanted to watch me fail." "Sarah, you're so cruel." I looked at his desperate, enraged face. "Mark," I said calmly, "I wasn't watching you fail. I was just taking back what was mine." At that moment, Mr. K removed his silver mask. A refined man with a pale complexion appeared on the giant screen. The entire venue went silent. Even my father stood up in shock. Mark froze, the strength draining from his hands. David Chen," he stammered. "No," he should have said, "the true power behind Genesis Capital, my uncle David Chen." Due to his health, my uncle had been receiving treatment overseas for years and rarely appeared in public. In my past life, after he passed away, I found out that he had always been quietly supporting me. His eyes settled on me, filled with regret. "Sarah," he said softly, "I'm sorry. Your uncle came back too late." The crowd erupted again. Then he made an announcement. From today onward, Genesis Capital will fully invest in Miss Sarah Miller's Solaris project. Mark staggered. But my uncle wasn't finished. And I will transfer 30% of my personal shares in Genesis Capital to my niece, Sarah. A stunned silence fell over the hall. The light in Mark's eyes faded completely. He finally realized that he had been given a second chance at life and had personally thrown it all away. After the summit, Mark and Jessica became the biggest joke in our social circle. I sat in my uncle's car watching the city lights flash by. My father sat in the front seat, looking back at me with guilt in his eyes. "Sarah," my uncle said, handing me a document. It was the official transfer agreement for the shares. I accepted it, my fingers trembling slightly. "This is what you deserve?" Uncle David said. "When your grandfather founded Genesis Capital, your mother was the one he wanted to take over. I knew he was right. In my previous life, I had been so consumed by my love for Mark that I ignored my family's legacy. It was only after my uncle passed away and the company collapsed that I realized my mistake. Thank you, Uncle," I said sincerely. "From now on, I'll protect what you and Grandpa built." When we arrived home, my aunt and uncle were already waiting. "Big brother," my aunt wailed, "you have to help our Jessica. She was framed by Sarah." My uncle chimed in, "It was Sarah. She's always been cunning. She was just jealous of Jessica and Mr. Thompson." My father trembled with rage. "You have the nerve to come here and say this?" he shouted. My aunt turned her fury on me. "Don't think you're so special just because your uncle is back. If it weren't for Jessica constantly praising you to Mark, copying your style to get his attention, do you really think he would have ever looked at you?" So that was it. My 20-year love story was a lie. "So you admit it?" I said coldly. "You admit Jessica has been copying my entire life." My aunt flinched but refused to back down. "That's called helping. With your personality, you'd never have gotten married." "Enough," my father roared, slamming a stack of papers on the table. "This is a termination of ties agreement. From now on, your family has nothing to do with us." "Get out." My aunt and uncle were stunned. As security dragged them out, my aunt shrieked, "Sarah, you bitch! You destroyed my daughter's future." I watched them go with a cold calm. Jessica was still upstairs. "Jessica, you can come down now," I called out. She came down, pale and trembling. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't mean to." Looking at her, I felt only disgust. This was the same act she used to ruin me in our last life. I waved my hand, and the security guards escorted her out as well. The villa was finally quiet, but Mark didn't disappear. He became more obsessed, more desperate. I stood in my new office, looking at the advertisement for Blaze Ventures on the building across the street. "Alex Ryder took over Mark Thompson's project," Uncle David said, handing me a coffee. "Yes," I replied. "A sworn enemy turned ally." How ironic. To get funding, Mark had signed a disastrous agreement with Alex. Reach 1 million users in 3 months, or Blaze Ventures would take control of his shares. Has he lost his mind? My father asked. I shook my head. He's not crazy, just overconfident. The next day, Mark launched his new social media platform, Skynet. At the press conference, he openly challenged me. "This project?" My father said, "Looks familiar." I laughed coldly. "That's because it's a draft I threw in the trash years ago. The concept had 3 fatal flaws. Jessica must have found it and given it to Mark." "Should we stop him?" my uncle asked. "No," I said. "Let him go on." I pulled out a document. "This is Skynet's data model. Once the user count passes 500,000, the system will crash, and I left a back door. All user data will automatically sync to my server." In the following days, I focused on my Solaris project while watching Skynet's numbers climb. Mark spent a fortune on advertising. The user numbers soared. On the 8th day, Mark held a lavish celebration banquet. He stood on stage, champagne in hand. "Tonight, I want to thank someone very special," he said, looking right at me. "Without her, I wouldn't have found my true self. Emily, do you see? I can soar even higher without you." I raised my glass with a calm smile, silently counting down. 3, 2, 1. The number on the screen behind him ticked over to 500, 0. At that exact moment, every phone in the room buzzed. Skynet had crashed. Then the screen behind Mark switched to the logo for Solaris Technologies. A message appeared. Skynet has collapsed. Solaris is now officially live. All Skynet users can migrate with one click. Your data is fully preserved. The room erupted into chaos. Mark slammed his glass down. "Sarah!" he roared, charging at me before being blocked by security. "What did you do?" I walked to the stage and took the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," I said, "I'm Sarah Miller, CEO of Solaris Technologies. I'd like to thank Mr. Thompson for providing such an effective marketing campaign for our new platform." I smiled at his twisted expression. He said that without me he would soar even higher, but he forgot one thing. A person without wings can never fly. The collapse of Skynet triggered a chain reaction. Alex Ryder at Blaze Ventures activated the agreement, demanding Mark repay 3 times the investment. Mark was facing financial ruin. He came to my office 7 times, but I refused to see him. He stood outside the building, shouting my name. "We were married for 20 years, he yelled. I watched from my window, feeling nothing. He sent me a message. "Are you really this heartless? Please, help me one last time." I blocked his number. Then, my assistant told me that Henry Thompson, Mark's father and the chairman of Story Group, wanted a meeting. The old fish had finally taken the bait. We met at a private tea house. "Sarah," he said, "I know that idiot Mark wronged you. I'll help you destroy him, make him lose everything. In return, you'll merge your platform with Story Group." He thought I was just a woman blinded by revenge. "Chairman Thompson," I said, "you're mistaken about one thing. I'm not here to destroy him, I'm here to devour him. Not just his company, but Story Group as well." His hand trembled, spilling tea. "What did you say?" I slid a file across the table. It contained detailed records of financial irregularities and illegal dealings within Story Group. "You're getting older, Chairman," I said quietly. "Maybe it's time you retired." His face turned purple with rage. "You dare threaten me?" "This isn't a threat," I said. "It's a negotiation. You have 2 choices. 1, you call a board meeting, step down, and transfer your shares to me. Your family keeps what little dignity it has left. 2, I go public with all of this, and your leaky ship sinks to the bottom." I knew all of Story Group's secrets from my past life, when I had studied it to help Mark. After a long silence, he slumped in his chair. "I need time to think." "You have 24 hours, I said. The next morning, I received a message. "I agree." At that moment, Mark was still in the dark. He found out I would be visiting my mother's grave that afternoon. It was drizzling in the cemetery. I laid a bouquet of white chrysanthemums on her headstone. "Mom," I said quietly, "I'm doing just fine now. No one can hurt me anymore." I heard footsteps behind me. It was Mark. He looked gaunt and exhausted, soaked by the rain. "Sarah," he called out, his voice trembling. I ignored him. He stepped closer. "I know I was wrong," he began. "I shouldn't have believed Jessica's lies. I shouldn't have treated you that way. I thought being reborn was a gift, but now I realize my biggest mistake was losing you." His eyes turned red. "When you exposed those data traps, I should have known." But I couldn't admit I was wrong. I didn't want to admit that I got a second chance and still ended up a fool. He told me he had replayed our entire past in his mind. Every decision, every success, you were always there behind the scenes. "Without you, I was nothing." He pleaded, "Help me one more time. For the sake of the 20 years we shared, I'll cut all ties with Jessica. I'll give up everything. I just want you back." His knees buckled and he fell to the ground in the mud. "I beg you, if not for me, then for our son." He still had the nerve to bring up our son, the same son who told him to marry Jessica. I turned and looked at him coldly. "Mark," I said slowly, "do you know what I was thinking when I was drowning in my last life? It wasn't about our 20 years together. It wasn't about love. I was thinking about the golden path I built for you, the one you and Jessica walked down like a pair of dogs." I died with my eyes wide open. He stared at me in disbelief. "So tell me," I smiled, "how could I possibly help you again? The only thing I'll do is take back what's mine, personally, including everything you thought was yours. And for that, I have to thank your father for his cooperation." What did you say?" he stammered. "While you were groveling at my feet, I continued. Your father was signing over all his shares in Story Group to me. Oh, and Alex Ryder from Blaze Ventures? He sold me all your company's debt, so legally speaking, Mr. Thompson, I'm your new boss. All the color drained from his face. I threw a document at his chest. Here's your termination notice. I'll give you a severance package. Take it and get out of this city. Don't ever show your face in front of me again. The paper fell into the mud. He looked up, rain and tears mixing on his face. Why? He kept asking. Why did it end like this? Because you never loved me, I said flatly. Because you never recognized my value. You brought this on yourself. I felt nothing looking at him. I opened my umbrella and started to walk away. After a few steps, I paused without looking back. Oh, and one more thing. The person you hate most, your brother Gavin, is now my deputy. Story Group will be co-managed by the two of us. You're the one who threw everything away. I didn't wait for a response. I walked on, hearing his scream of anguish tear through the air behind me, carried away by the wind. My life had started a new chapter, and Mark Thompson was just dust in the past.